Environment Canterbury needs to stop treating these things like rivers. They are drains.
Environment Canterbury, you need to hire some experts.
If you just got in last week and done this, we wouldn't be having this problem.
Eking are around, but they're not doing any work.
And what about during a flood, huh? The fish don't seem to care about the sediment then.
Have you ever thought about taking the shingle out of the rivers again like they used to in the good old days?
800 people work for Environment Canterbury and only 2 with half a brain.
You guys are pretty lucky because we're both here today. Tēnā koutou katoa, no auratahi aho, ki te ika, Maui aho e noho ana. Ko Sean McCracken, toka wingwa, ke te mahi o te kei te kanahira taio ki Waitaha. Nō reira, tēnā koutou katoa.
Ko hokakura te roto whakahirehira ki o, ko Huranui te awa o te rohis, ko Embracing the Braid toka wingwa. Kia ora.
Right, we're going to start with the elephant in the room, local government reform, and just to sort of get it on and off the table. We don't know what's going to happen in the next few years. The brand name that we're going to be working for is going to change. We don't know what it's going to turn into, but what we do know is that the community relies on this work that we do. In the Rivers team where Amy and I work, we're within Environment Canterbury's Community Preparedness and Response to Hazards core service. We connect with folks in the Environmental Regulation and Protection core service and across the business. So really the message from the outset here is whatever the structure, this work is so important, the communities value it and it's going to continue and it's going to need experienced people to be working in it.
This footage is from circa 1950 of the South Canterbury Catchment Board. As I watched it, I got the inspiration for this presentation because it occurs to me, from the outside at least, our work doesn't look that different. It still has the same main components: gravel abstraction, bulldozers, herbicide, and willows. But I've worked at ECAN for coming up 7 years and I've seen great change in that time. So it doesn't really ring true. I come here every year to Braid to listen to stories about rat catchers, learn about the Turn housing crisis, and grit my teeth through Sunny's climate change updates, wishing that I had her at my Christmas dinner table as an ally. And every year I walk away feeling conflicted, inspired, of course, to keep doing my good work to protect these ecosystems, but like an intruder, because I sit in the room with the engineers that constrain the river. I eat my lunch with the planners that authorise the gravel abstractions, and I've used a fair share of glyphosate. So why am I here today? Why do I keep showing up? And why haven't I left ECAN if it's such a moral dilemma for me? It's because I'm not an intruder. I work and live and play in these rivers just like you guys. So I have roped Sean into spinning a yarn with me about what the Rivers and Hazards team's been up to and what's been changing recently.
So our obligation started, as Nick said, as the utility function to protect communities from flooding. And it's our job to think about these rivers on the bad days. This is the Hines River. This is sped up 10 times. This is the 2021 flood. And it shows the power of the water and what it carries. This is the Arari River. And this is a series of videos of the stopbank that's protecting life and property being washed away. So our job is to think about this in advance and to prepare the communities that are protected by this work from these bad days. This is the Ashley River. While we're doing that, we're thinking about minimising the impact and working towards better outcomes for the river.
Should I keep watching it?
I think this is the last one. North Ashburton River. Well, one more. This is from yesterday. This is the Mason River near Waiau Township. Awesome video. I just want to share it because it really makes me excited. I think the hydraulics of what's going on there is a fast-moving mobile river, and the bed's moving as well, and that's what enables those standing waves to be created. It's awesome. I want to touch on scale really quickly. Yeah. These are a couple of images from before and after the 2021 flood. And scale is important because when we look at each one of these erosion sites, what those represent is a big deal for an individual landowner. And those are the individuals that we as individual staff members are going out and talking to on a daily basis and interacting with. And then when we zoom out, this is the same data zoomed out from that 2021 flood. The scale of damage in a flood like that becomes apparent. You know, it's catchment wide. Or another way to look at that scale is on the Rangitata River. This is a photo from 2019. We're looking downstream, down the main stem of the Rangitata and the south branch up to the right there. And if we zoom in to this little piece in here, that's a 90-ton bulldozer doing a little bit of work to try and redirect the flow of the river back down the main stem so that the state highway and railway network can open up again. So scale's important. A bit on our team and the change that's taken place. You know, I've been at ECAN for 15 years. When I was employed, the guy at the top of the chart there, he was his job title was the regional engineer. We're a bunch of engineers and I think one planner working for Ross. The team now has grown so much. It includes our Parks and Forests team, our operations team, whose responsibility broadly is keeping all the infrastructure in good condition. I lead the technical team there, whose responsibility broadly is looking at improvements, the design and the specification of new works that are going into place. A delivery team that's broadly looking at these bigger projects that are underway and putting them into a project management space so that they actually get done. And of course, the Braided River Revival team that Greg and Amy are going to talk about, that link all that together and try and get better outcomes for the river as we're doing this work.
All of that is to say, yep, there are a whole lot of engineers, but we are not all engineers. We're ecologists, planners, geomorphologists, you name it. A truly multidisciplinary team working at a pretty big scale to deliver works across the region. But if I'm being honest, we are just a bunch of river nerds just like you. The decisions that our team makes are made by experts, but they aren't made in a vacuum. And it's tempting to think that the problems we face as a team have simple solutions, or that we just go with the first thing that pops into our head, but it's simply not the truth. And for whatever reason, the complexity of those decisions gets lost in translation somewhere. From State Highway 1, you cannot see the weeks of work that went into putting that digger in the river. Often that physical work can be the result of weeks, months, or even years of planning and consultation. We lean on our planning and environmental advisors to make sure that what we're doing is safe and legal and the effects are appropriately managed. We don't always get it right, of course, we do a lot. But unlike our well-intentioned friends from the 1950s, our works are carefully planned to avoid sensitive areas, fines, and activities. And when we can't avoid, we minimise our impacts as much as we can. Being a part of a team of diverse specialists allows us to deliver work to a really high standard, and it gives us the breathing space to consider new and better alternatives.
Just had couple of days of pretty heavy rain up in Kaikoura. This diagram is, you know, I'd refer to it as a stylized version of people's emotions as we go through an event like that. You know, there's a bit of an excitement as things are building up, as it starts to rain, and then the reality of the situation sets in, and people get quite stressed, quite emotional, and those to have conversations in that time of trauma becomes quite hard. So I really wanted to stress that, you know, we're working with communities through this entire process of excitement, through to stress, through to recovery. We aren't speaking with people necessarily on their best days. But these people will remember how they're treated, especially when they're at a low. So managing ourselves and navigating these conversations is very important. We don't forget that the people that we're speaking with are terrified of losing the life that they've worked hard to build. This is an important aspect of delivering and implementing these projects. but we also see everything else that's going on in the community. We're not blind to the feedback, to the criticism that's coming at us from all directions. So here's just some examples of some of that feedback that comes in when folks can only see one side of the iceberg. We're just going to jump now to, I guess, some of the good work. Room for the Rivers. Room for the River is a concept that's being really promoted in New Zealand for a couple of years now, and we're right on board with that. I think most of you are probably familiar with the concept being, if we can provide more space, that's more space for floodwater, it's more space for diversity, and a better river environment as well. We're just going to look at one site in particular and talk about some of the complexities of making it happen. This is Sean's crude version of what the plan is. The red lines are where there's existing stop banks, and the yellow lines are where we're planning to retreat those stop banks. This is on the north branch of the Ashburton River, and we're looking upstream in this case. The complexity of making this happen, this has been 5 years since the 2021 flood. Over that time, we've had to purchase land, negotiate with the adjacent landowners up and downstream, convince them that this is a good idea. We've had to go through a resource consent process, repeat of flood modelling to demonstrate that this is going to actually have a beneficial and not a detrimental flood impact, to get to the point where we're now ready for construction this coming summer. And if we use our friendly AI generating engine to generate a vision of what it might look like in the future, including a dump of all the water out of the Rangatato diversion race into here to make it look like the Rakaia, this is the kind of space that we could end up with.
Cool. Many of you will have interacted with the Braided River Revival team at some point, I'm sure, but what you might not know is that we are now fully integrated into business as usual. We've been delivering flood protection projects with biodiversity and community multi-benefit outcomes for about 5 years now. It's become the way that Rivers does business. Hard infrastructure is always going to be needed, but in the places that it isn't needed, we have opportunities to do things differently. River engineers and Braided River Revival are working together to find those opportunities. For example, Sean's been speaking about room for the rivers in terms of buying land, but many rivers, as you know, are constrained by willows a long way before they're constrained by a line on a map. We can do something about that today, and we are. Thanks to people like Rob Carson-Isles from DOC and ARG, we've been using heavy-duty mulches and forestry equipment to clear kilometres of riverbed at a time. And before you ask, yes, we have the budget to keep it that way, thanks to our other colleagues who are working hard to secure co-investment and national funding opportunities. What else have we been working on? Well, we know we need to reduce our reliance on willows, but unfortunately it can't happen overnight. So we've been running DNA tests on our willow resources to make sure we know what we have and what we're using. The Central River engineer approached Braided River Revival to help with a new willow nursery. He'd noticed natives on site and wanted to retain them and wanted some help. Usually our nurseries are just straight lines of grass and willows, but this one is a huge mess in comparison because every second row is a mixture of planted and wild natives. It seems like a small example, but I think it speaks to the wider change in the approach to our problems. Willows and natives in tandem, and the river engineer coming and talking about biodiversity before considering, or at the same time as considering, the flood protection outcome. We also carry out pre-spray vegetation surveys for our aerial spray operations and mark off areas that are of high value. We can see the poorly named scabweed or anything else. And we carry out fixed salvage operations when our work needs it, but they are a last resort. You might have heard that we've been planting natives underneath our flood protection willows. This helps reduce the weed, what's the word? It keeps the vines down so we can spend less money in the long term on maintenance, but it also has a huge benefit for the natives. They grow better with the help of our flood protection willows. And in spaces that we don't have the shade of those willows, we've been testing geotextile cloth, think dry, rainy riverbeds, and we're getting really good results from that too. And we have been telling you about it. If you want to read about any of those projects, any of the work we've been doing, there's our annual report online and a whole lot of techniques to check out too. Sometimes the best way to get something done is to just do it, and sometimes that's not legal or prudent. We'd all agree that policy and planning should enable good work to happen, not prevent restoration efforts from happening at all. But it's a slow-moving beast, and it drives most operation-focused people absolutely mad. But luckily for us in Rivers, we have a team of dedicated planners who are working to enable our work, and they're working to enable some of your work as well.
Also working across the country with our colleagues from other regional councils, looking for opportunities to promote with politicians the importance of these issues that our communities are facing. This has led to funding opportunities across the country to get this work underway, and Amy's already touched on that. We're also heavily involved nationally with the Civil Defence Group, and this includes relationships with district and city councils as well, so that when we get events like we've had this week, things go smoothly. Something that's been really great for us is the professional development program. If you haven't checked that out, just search for the Resilient River Communities website and look for the professional development program. There's a ton of webinars and interesting content on there.
There are a lot of River staff here today. I'm tempted to make you all stand up, but I won't. I wanted to leave you with a quote that I refer to all the time in my work. Perfect is the enemy of the good. In the pursuit of the perfect outcome, we can become paralyzed by too many choices or lose sight of the good that already exists in what we're doing. There are so many different things to consider in river works that there just simply is no perfect answer. The best that we can do is better. And that's why I keep coming to days like today to see the good that you guys are all doing and hopefully do better at the work that I do.
With that said, we'd like to thank our ECAN and our Department of Conservation colleagues, our treaty partners, and everyone in the room who's come today and continues to expect excellence from us. I think we're doing better than our friends in the 1950s, and we really hope that you do too. So please stay curious. If you've seen any of these attention-grabbing headlines, come and have a chat to us before jumping on the bandwagon. There's so much more going on below the surface. If you see something that doesn't look quite right, come and have a chat. If we hear from you early, we can act and change what's going on. Kia ora, thank you.
Kia ora.